So ArcCaptain was also nice enough to send us a plasma cutter, so we're going to try this out. This is the ArcCaptain Cut55 prolux model. So we'll go ahead and cut this open and see what she looks like. I'm assuming that's going to be our torch. It is amazing how small they can make these. So right off the bat, I'm impressed with how small it is. I like the feel of the adjustment. On the back of the machine, we have a regulator here. It looks like it does have a drain on the bottom of it. The regulator on it works the same way. So you pull it up and then you can adjust it and then push it down to lock it. So we got a 240 plug here. Let's see what we got in this box. Can't say it enough. Comes with a cover, love it. Love that it comes with a cover. Ground cable, a couple hose clamps. There's the adapter for if you want to run 110. Got your plasma torch there. On my ArcCaptain 205 MP, it had a different style torch, I believe. This looks like it's a little bit better torch even. Comes with a couple consumables. It looks like you can build a hose, and I'm assuming that's what the fittings are for. We're not going to need to do that because we already have an air hose and we'll be able to attach right to this. So, pretty cool. It's getting late tonight. I'm probably not going to be able to run the test tonight, but I did want to unbox it, kind of go over everything. So tomorrow we'll come back out here, we'll hook it up, we'll show you guys what the controls look like. We'll hook it up to air and we'll give her a test run. So we'll catch you guys tomorrow. All right, guys, we've got our Cut55 prolux machine hooked up. Got our ground cable hooked in here. We've got our signal wire hooked in here. We've got our gas hose hooked in and our control cable hooked in. So now we're going to power it up. We need to peel the sticker off first. So satisfying. Okay, so let's power it up. Okay, so it looks like it's set on 2T, which means you'll pull the trigger to run it and then you'll let it go and it will turn off. So it's got cut mode, not sure what that is. So it looks like there's 3 modes. I'll read in the book, see what those modes mean. There's like a purge button here, so you can purge the hose. So it looks like you can actuate the solenoid inside that runs the air, probably for testing purposes, I guess, or to cool the torch down. So it looks like on 240 volt, you can go all the way up to 55 amps. Our pressure is currently set at 67. It's really cool that the regulator is actually on the machine. Oh, that's why you would actuate the air, so you can adjust your regulator. So we'll go ahead. I'll show you guys here. Give you a better look here. Okay, so there's our amperage. We can go up to 55 amps. And then here's our air. It's set at 61. So the reason that you would want to be able to toggle your solenoid inside the machine is so you can adjust the regulator. So the regulator's back here on the back of the machine. Okay, so I'm going to toggle this and then I'm going to adjust my PSI here. I'm going to turn that up a little. Okay, so you can see it's set at 67. The running pressure is at 60. So I'm going to leave it right there. So I'm going to push that down and lock that in place. The reason I'm going to 60 is if you look here in your book, it comes with a user guide. This will help you figure out what amperage you want to run for what size of material and what air pressure. And it's got aluminum, stainless, mild. So you'll want to look at that depending on what type of material you plan on cutting. All right guys, so let's go over what we got here. I've got some 1/8 inch material, some 3/16 material, some 1/4 inch material, some 3/8 material, and, because we're feeling frisky, some 1/2 inch material. Just for fun, I want to see what it'll do on 3/8 and 1/2. And I'm sure it'll cut it, you'll just have to go really slow. So let's fire it up, let's see how it does. The book says on 240 volt, we want to run it at 60 PSI, and we also want to run it at 55 amps, and that's for every thickness. It changes if you hook it up to 120 volt, you want to run it at 35 amps, every thickness, and 55 on the PSI. So it's always best if you make sure that it's set right. It'll give you the best quality of cut, and it'll also give you speeds on there, but I don't really pay attention to the speeds. With CNC, it's important, but if I'm just holding the torch, I just kind of try to read what's going on. And if I need to speed up a little bit, I'll speed up. And if I need to slow down, I'll slow down. You'll know you need to slow down if it's not cutting all the way through and blowing the material clear through. So that's what I do. All right, so we're going to start with 1/8 inch here, and we'll just try cutting a couple strips. So let me get a piece of plywood on the floor. We'll get the torch over here, get my hood on, and we'll try it out. So just so you guys are aware, this is the consumables that it comes with. Looks like it does come with 2 nozzles and 2 electrodes. And then it looks like there is a little bracket thing. And I'm assuming that's for if you want to drag cut to keep from dragging your tip through the molten metal and causing issues. Let's see what this looks like here. Okay, it's actually kind of cool. We're going to try it with this thing just because I think it's a good idea. Okay, so you can see there's a groove around this cup right here, and then you throw it on the floor. So there's a groove on the cup right there. If I take and just push this on, click, that'll click right into place. Okay, and then you can see that gives you just enough clearance that you're not going to drag your tip. I actually kind of like that idea. It's a simple, just a simple fix. But for somebody that's learning, it's especially important, I think. All right, 1/8 inch, here we go. I haven't cleaned this up or anything. It's still a little bit rusty. Mild steel, 1/8 inch, here we go. Okay, I like it. I'm going to try to get it a little straighter. It actually gives you a pretty good cut. There's a little bit of dross there, but you're going to get that with plasma. But that's a pretty good cut. Okay, so there's 1/8 inch. Let's bump it up to 3/16. We're going to do the same thing here. Okay, same thing. That actually looks pretty dang good. And that's just freehanding. Once you knock the slag off that, that gives you a pretty good joint there. Okay. Okay, now we're bumping up to 1/4. Goodness, I think it cuts the 1/4 better than it cuts the thin stuff. Okay, so just because I want to, I'm gonna knock that dross off the bottom and show you how good that joint looks. Pretty impressed by that, really. The majority of people that are going to be using a plasma, chances are they're probably not going to be cutting anything over 1/4 inch. For DIYers, for hobbyists, for all beginners, all those types of people, this machine would be perfect for somebody that's starting out, that's doing a little bit of fab work out in their garage, around their house, on the farm. I could totally see somebody putting this machine to work and being pretty happy with it. So, okay, 1/4 inch is done. Now, we're bumping up to 3/8. We're gonna see how it does. We're gonna have to go pretty slow. Let's just give her a rip and see what happens. All right, so here's the deal. When you start getting up to that thicker material, you're gonna get more kerf because the amperage isn't enough to blow straight through. You're just gonna get more kerf the thicker the material is when you're limited on amperage. So you can slow down your speed and it will help, but you're still gonna get a little bit because the arc is actually deflecting. So when I say kerf, for those of you who don't know what kerf is, it's this angle right here. That's kerf. So instead of it being square, it's got an angle. That's called kerf. And you get that with plasma. So let's knock the slag off this. The cut actually looks really good though. And you could make it work. Okay. So now let's try 1/2 inch and see what it'll do. Just gonna try to cut the corner off of this old base plate. So you can see we still got a little kerf there. I went pretty dang slow on that one, but that's a pretty good quality cut. So there's what it looks like after you knock the dross off. That's pretty clean. Clean that up with a grinder, you got yourself a good joint you can weld. So that's pretty slick. So that's 1/2 inch steel. You can cut thicker material. You're just gonna need to slow down, take your time. You'll definitely wanna make sure that you max out your amperage and that you adjust your air pressure according to the manual and just go slow. If you're gonna cut thicker material, you'll also wanna let the machine take a break between times when you cut because the duty cycle is not that high. But you will be able to cut material that's, you know, 1/2 inch thick if you just go slow, take your time. So that's pretty cool. So I'm gonna grab the manual and we'll go over a couple more of the settings just so everybody understands what they mean on the interface of the machine. Hopefully you can see that logo. Okay, so that's what we're gonna be changing. So what it's on right now is called grid cutting. That right there is rust removal mode, which is pretty sweet. So we're gonna try that out. We got plenty of rusty metal here to try it on. And then that is just regular cutting mode. So I'm gonna try both modes now, see if I can tell a difference between grid cutting and regular cutting mode. And then once we try the cutting mode out, we'll try the rust removal mode. All right, so since we just cut a piece of 1/2 inch and it went well, but I wanna go right back to 1/2 inch. Okay, so I turned my amperage up all the way on regular cutting mode. My air pressure is the same, 60 PSI. Okay, so let's try this on regular cutting mode, see if we can tell a difference. All right, so I think I got a little bit greedy with my speed on that one. I had to go back and cut a few spots where it didn't cut all the way through, but I still got a good cut. So that's regular mode. And that was my grid cutting mode. So I feel like if you're cutting a straight line, I feel like grid cutting mode is probably going to give you a better cut, or at least that's what I noticed. If you're going to cut curves and stuff like that, you probably want it on regular mode, but on grid mode, I feel like I got a cleaner cut in a straight line. So now that I've tried that out, let's try out this rust removal mode. I'm kind of excited to see what that does. We'll go ahead and zoom in here so you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. Okay, so it does knock the rust off. I will say this, I don't know if it leaves slag on the surface. If there is slag on that, which I would assume there's probably a little bit, you'll definitely want to hit that with a wire wheel or a flap disc or something to get that residue or that slag off of there. But that's pretty cool. If you had some really thick rust and you wanted to just go through and knock that off, you could. Now I want to show you, when you're running this, the arc blows out about, I don't know, half an inch. If you get too close, it'll start digging into the material. So you want to be cognizant of that. So let me just show you what'll happen if I get too close with the arc. Hopefully you can see that, but it did dig into the material. I am going to try turning my amperage down. Oh, it actually automatically set it to 35, and it doesn't change. So that's good. Okay, so when you run it on rust removal mode or whatever, it locks it in at 35 amps. And that's probably so you don't dig too much into the material like I did there. So just be aware when you're using that mode, you want to be careful with how deep you go with the arc. You want to keep some distance between the cone of the arc and the material. So we've learned what the settings are. Looks like there's 2T and PT. Okay, so I'm not really sure what PT is. If I change it to PT and then strike an arc, it just basically defaults back to 2T. So 2T is you hold the trigger down and you're cutting, and then you let it go and it stops. 4T is you hit the trigger and you're cutting, and then you hit the trigger again to turn it off. So you can release your finger. You can rest your finger basically while you're cutting, but you're going to have to hit it again to shut it off. That's the difference between those two trigger modes. So that's pretty much the gist of the machine. I'm impressed with what it will do for the price. Alright guys, so another thing I wanted to mention, if you have been thinking about purchasing some ArcCaptain equipment, there's a couple good sales coming up I just wanted to mention. The first would be the Black Friday sale, and that is November 14th through November 29th. For Black Friday, they're going to offer up to 50% off all products. And then for Cyber Monday, that sale is going to be taking place on November 29th through December 10th, with Cyber Monday being on December 1st. They're also offering some spend and save discounts. So if you spend $500, you can save $30. If you spend $800, you can save $60. Or if you spend $1,500, you can save $150. And then, as I said before, that's also going to include, there's a 50% off sale on all of their products. There's also a lottery promotion going on, and so every time you place an order, you'll be entered to win with a 100% win rate. Prizes range from a TIG 200P AC/DC welder to accessories like welding helmets, wire, and more. So just wanted to let you guys know about those upcoming sales and deals. You can find more information about these sales and deals on ArcCaptain.com. Check them out. And how it will cut. You get good quality cuts. Something else you want to remember with plasma is your tips, when they start getting gummed up, it's time to change them. So you'll want to have some consumables on hand. Your electrodes will wear out, and so will your nozzles. So that's something you'll want to remember. To get a good quality cut, you want to keep your consumables in good shape. All right, so just to wrap this up, I'm going to clean this up with my ArcCaptain grinder here. See how she does. Okay, looks good. All right, guys, that's pretty much going to wrap up the video. Check out these new products from ArcCaptain. We've got our ArcCaptain battery grinder. It's pretty sweet. I'm impressed with what it'll do so far. I'm excited to put it to work on a real job, and I'll give you guys my honest opinion. So we're going to put these two products to work in real life scenarios and see how they hold up. When you get on the website, if you decide to order any of these products, make sure you use the discount code FREEDOM, and that'll save you a little bit of money. It also helps me out. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a nice day. See you on the next one. All right, guys, it's actually the next day, and all right, guys. Okay, guys, it's actually the next day, and UPS was nice enough to drop this off. So the other thing that ArcCaptain sent me was this plasma cutter. This is the plasma. Okay, guys, so it's the next day. UPS dropped this off just a couple hours ago, and ArcCaptain was nice enough to also send me an ArcCaptain. ArcCaptain was also nice enough to send me a Cut prolux. Goodness. ArcCaptain was also nice enough to send us this plasma cutter, and the model is a ArcCaptain was nice enough to send me a plasma cutter as well, and we're going to test this out. This is the goodness. All right, guys, we've got our okay, so here's the deal. When you start getting up to that higher, all right, so here's the deal. When you start getting up to that higher thick, goodness. All right, guys, so that's pretty much going to wrap up this video. Check out the Cut prolux 55. Goodness.